It was a moment no one saw coming, yet one that quickly sent shockwaves through both royal watchers and Hollywood elites. During a recent appearance on the Graham Norton Show, the legendary Dame Helen Mirren did what few have dared. She publicly eviscerated Meghan Markle's now infamous podcast, calling it another flop in what she described as Markle's ever-growing graveyard of failed ventures. The audience gasped. But the 78-year-old Oscar winner wasn't done. With characteristic poise and unapologetic frankness, Mirren laid bare what many have been whispering for years, that Meghan Markle is all show, no substance, and the world is finally catching on. For a woman who once claimed she wanted privacy, Meghan Markle has never left the headlines. From the controversial Oprah interview to her Netflix docuseries, Markle has wielded her royal title like a golden ticket into Hollywood's elite circle, only to deliver content that many consider superficial, self-serving, and ultimately forgettable. And now even respected figures in the entertainment world like Mirren are beginning to call it out. In her appearance, Mirren didn't mince words. She called the podcast hollow and accused Markle of mistaking victimhood for vision. The audience applauded. Twitter erupted. And Meghan? Silent. Dame Helen's scathing critique struck a chord because it came from a place of undeniable credibility. This is not some tabloid columnist or anonymous social media user. This is one of Britain's most beloved actresses, a woman who has played royalty with grace and has witnessed the power and dignity that true service demands. Her words weren't bitter, they were clinical, precise, and anchored in a truth many are too timid to confront. The podcast, Archetypes, launched by Markle with great fanfare, was billed as a revolutionary take on feminism. What it delivered instead was a carefully polished echo chamber that largely centered on Markle herself. And it wasn't just Helen Mirren's remarks that hit hard, it was the timing. Markle's podcast had just been axed by Spotify, with insiders reportedly calling her and Prince Harry grifters behind closed doors. The multi-million-dollar deal had produced only a handful of episodes and left Spotify reportedly underwhelmed by both content and listenership. That a global platform would cut ties with such high-profile names spoke volumes. Mirren, always the tactful truth-teller, merely said what many in the industry had already concluded: the magic Markle promised simply doesn't exist. Beyond the podcast debacle, Meghan's larger media narrative continues to unravel. Her attempts to position herself as a cultural icon have often backfired. Critics have long noted the lack of authenticity in her storytelling. The recurring theme of victimhood, the constant allusions to her supposed mistreatment by the royal family, and the selective telling of events have all painted a picture that feels more like a scripted drama than lived reality. In the words of one British journalist, Meghan Markle doesn't tell her story, she manufactures it. And Mirren's comments weren't isolated. Since the release of Markle's Netflix series and her floundering podcast, a growing number of public figures have voiced their discomfort with how she uses her platform. Piers Morgan, long a vocal critic, famously stormed off Good Morning Britain over a disagreement about Markle's trustworthiness. Journalist Megyn Kelly has accused Markle of exploiting her royal connections while tearing down the very institution that gave her global fame. And now, with Mirren adding her name to the list, it's becoming harder to ignore what once seemed like fringe opinions. What's most damning is the pattern. Meghan Markle's ventures repeatedly follow a similar trajectory: high expectations, massive PR blitz, mediocre execution, and an eventual distancing by collaborators. From her children's book that barely registered on bestseller lists to the Netflix documentary riddled with questionable facts, the results have rarely lived up to the hype. Meanwhile, Markle continues to position herself as a victim of both racism and institutional oppression, yet chooses projects that are overtly self-celebratory and, ironically, deeply commercialized. Helen Mirren's takedown wasn't just a soundbite, it was a statement. In calling out the shallowness of Markle's media projects, she also challenged the culture of unearned celebrity that Meghan epitomizes. "It's not enough to be a duchess with a microphone," Mirren said. "You have to have something worth saying." As the dust settles from Mirren's verbal smackdown, one thing is clear: the tide is turning. Even in the glittering world of showbiz, substance still matters. And when someone as respected as Helen Mirren draws the line, people listen. Meghan Markle, once hailed as a modern feminist hero, now finds herself more often the subject of scorn than admiration. And unless she starts delivering real value instead of repackaged royal resentment, her future in the media may be as short-lived as her Spotify contract. With figures like Mirren refusing to stay silent, Markle's carefully curated narrative may finally be crumbling. Whether she pivots or doubles down remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: The age of unquestioned adulation is over, and the critics, now including Dame Helen herself, are no longer biting their tongues. The broader question now is whether Meghan herself is aware of this shift or if she remains trapped in an echo chamber of sycophants and scripted brand building. Hollywood has always been a fickle beast, and the public even more so. Initial sympathy for Meghan's early struggles in the royal family has curdled into fatigue, with even longtime supporters now questioning her intentions. Was she ever in it to make a difference, or was the Duchess simply chasing the spotlight under the guise of activism? Even more concerning is her apparent inability to accept criticism. Instead of evolving, Meghan doubles down, blaming racism, British media, or unnamed forces for every professional setback. But in an industry driven by content and consistency, excuses wear thin fast. The world no longer wants to hear a one-dimensional sob story from someone living in a Montecito mansion. Dame Helen Mirren's remarks did more than mock a bad podcast. They cracked open the carefully crafted image Meghan has tried so hard to maintain. And when an icon like Mirren speaks, people don't just listen, they reevaluate. Meghan Markle may still command attention, but the days of blind loyalty are behind her. The crown she walked away from may now haunt her more than she ever imagined.